this video, we have a special guest. His name is Mike. He's an engineer manager at DigitalOcean. In this video specifically, we're going to talk about how he went from a software engineer to a software engineer manager. Thank you very much, Mike, for having you today.
Thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, throughout this video, if you have any comments or any feedback or any video ideas that you'd like to see me make in the future, please comment down below. So, Mike, can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. I'm Mike Berezowski. I'm currently an engineering manager at DigitalOcean. At DigitalOcean, our mission is to simplify cloud computing so developers and businesses can spend more time focusing on building software that changes the world. And I've been managing for the last few years now, and something I'm really passionate about. So I'm excited to talk to you about my own experiences.
Awesome. So my first question for you, Mike, is your career journey. So can you tell us a bit more about how you get started as a software developer and how do you become a software engineer manager?
Sure thing. Yeah. I would say that my career was fairly typical. I studied math and computer science in university and then began working as a software developer through various companies and industries along the way. Began with IBM doing large ERP systems and then moved into the Microsoft space where I was a full stack developer building, front-end websites with ASP.NET and then into React, Angular, and Vue.js front ends with .NET backend services. And then from there, I transitioned into tech lead role for a few years before getting into pure management roles over the last few years.
Nice. Now, what was your role as a tech lead?
As a tech lead, I was involved in fairly small teams, but I drove the projects and tech solutions for the team, as well as delegated work out to the team members and things like that. So it was a bit of a hybrid role, which included developing solutions, sort of some architecting solutions and things like that, as well as coding some of the work, but also working with the team members to delegate work to them, ensuring that they were delivering, as well as just coaching and mentoring them in their own personal growth. Yeah.
Awesome. So that leads me my next question. Why did you transition from a SD role or a tech lead role to a software engineering manager role?
Right. So a lot of people don't necessarily know that the tech lead role is kind of a hybrid role, and it's a great opportunity to evaluate where you'd like to go next. In my case, I did spend a lot of time self-reflecting and doing some introspection about where I wanted to go next. I found that it was just more interesting to me to focus on things like mentorship, coaching, celebrating the career growth and wins of the developers on my team, as well as serving others and helping them. So that's what really helped me to make the decision about pursuing management as opposed to going the more technical direction of, say, staff engineer or principal or architect or something like that. One thing I would like to mention, there's a really great book out there, Designing Your Life by Bill Evans and Bill Burnett, I think, that had some really great exercises to help you define your values and what really you're good at and what you're passionate about. I used those exercises, which really helped me to understand where I wanted to focus. And it was around helping others, working with people and things like that. So that's how I made the decision.
Got it. Now, my next question is your responsibility as a software engineer manager. What do you do as an engineer manager?
Right. Basically, the number one priority as an engineering manager is around your team. So focusing on the team health, team performance, team delivery, as well as the individuals on the team, their performance, their delivery, their growth and development and things like that, as well as ensuring that the team is aligned with the larger organization and delivering towards company goals, right? So that's the number one priority. Another thing is that a lot of people don't realize management is an important function of business, just like marketing, HR, finance, and things like that. And so you're a part of that function for the business to ensure that the business operates effectively. And, for Management 101, the main functions of management are planning, leading, organizing, staffing, and controlling. And within each one of those, planning involves everything from capacity and resource planning to things like sprint planning, project planning, and strategic planning for your team, as well as within the larger organization. Leading, of course, you're in a position of authority for making decisions for the team, but there's also both people and technical leadership aspects with the role that are important. Organization is really around defining things like team process and ensuring you have the right people in the right roles to make sure that your team is aligned with the company. Staffing, obviously, you're expected to identify the needs of your team and negotiate staffing requirements, things like budget and planning around that, as well as you have a responsibility in defining and posting those roles goals, recruiting and interviewing candidates. And for controlling, that's really around measurement. So within the team, you have things like your delivery metrics, your velocity, your burn down, ensuring that stories are closed out and epics are completed and things like that. From an individual perspective, that's evaluating individual performance, working on their growth and development. And another important one is ensuring that you're providing meaningful data to upper management and the larger organization so they understand how the team is doing and see that the team is working towards achieving goals. On a more day-to-day perspective, meetings definitely are a form of work that you do as a manager. And a lot of the common ones definitely are, your one-on-ones are foundational with your individuals on your team. You should be conducting those regularly. If you are doing Agile, you have all those Agile ceremonies, sprint planning, retrospectives, grooming, and things like that. There's also, project meetings that include meeting with design, UX, and project management, and a lot of cross-team meetings for projects that span multiple teams. So you're working with other teams to ensure that you're delivering these larger scale projects. Finally, another really common one is meeting with the larger business unit or functional unit that you're a part of. So in our company, we do a monthly business review meeting with our entire org just to keep everybody updated on how the team is doing and how we're working towards our goals.
I see. So it's more, it seems like it's more business side of things, less technical side of things. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. You're really a liaison for the team to the business. So you're doing a lot of work to collaborate with the larger business to ensure that you're meeting the business needs. Yeah.
I see. Now, my next question is, do you see any challenges that you face when you transition to the management role?
Definitely. Yeah. Certainly one of the biggest challenges that most people face, especially if you're coming from an individual contributor into a manager role, is letting go of control. As a developer, you have control over the solution you build. You're able to see the results of that as you build it. Your working software is the output. But as a manager, you're relying on others to do the delivery. And so you have to be willing to let go of that control, put trust in your developers to ensure that they're going to build the right solution. So that's a big one for a lot of people to let go of. I certainly face struggles with that myself. Another one I want to mention is there's an aspect of loneliness that comes with management. You're no longer the same level of peer with the rest of your teammates. And a lot of issues that you often deal with are of sensitive or private or confidential nature. So you can't necessarily share that with your teammates the same way. So I highly recommend trying to connect with people outside of your organization to help you have a support network that you can kind of work through problems with and things like that. Another big one is dealing with ambiguity. You are often trying to figure out what needs to be done in the context of the business and ensuring that the team is coming up with solutions to meet those goals. And just the nature of the role requires a lot of different things. So there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity in terms of what you're doing. And you have to get used to working with that and just accepting it as part of the role. And finally, I would like to mention that things do move at a little bit of a different pace. As a developer, you're often delivering things on a day or a couple of days cadence type thing. Things move really quickly. But when you're operating at a team level, projects can take sometimes months, sometimes years, depending on the size of the project. And it can be hard to keep an eye on those longer term goals when you're in the middle of a project like that. So things do move at a little bit different pace, and it does take some getting used to.
Okay, I see. Is it possible if you give us an example of, you mentioned earlier, like letting go of control, what are the things that you had to let go for?
Sure.
Maybe, yeah.
So an example would be you're building some type of software, like a service, for example. Previously, even as a tech lead, you have the responsibility that you can influence that solution, right? You often are involved in choosing the tech stack, architecting the design, and then maybe even implementing some of it while working with the rest of the team to do that. Whereas an engineering manager, you're really delegating those responsibilities to the team members, and you have to accept that they're going to come up with the solutions that they see as best. So you really have to let go of that. If you're finding yourself getting down into the weeds and really dictating all of the details of a solution, that's bordering on micromanagement, and it's not a good thing for developer engagement.
I see. Now, my next question is, speaking of leadership roles, what aspects of leadership roles apply to software developer manager?
Sure. Leadership is a really important aspect of being a manager. There's several components that are involved in as an engineering manager in particular. Certainly, there's an element of technical leadership, but as an engineering manager, the leadership components of that are slightly different. You're not so much building solutions or providing the architecture of designs and things like that. You're more of a oversight, ensuring that the solutions that the team come up with meet things like your engineering requirements, your non-functional requirements, and the business requirements. So you're asking a a lot of questions about the solution and making sure that it's feasible, that the team can deliver on it. A couple other leadership styles that I'll mention that are important in this role are transactional leadership. That's holding people accountable for the work that they do. Coaching is definitely a big part of it. You're coaching your developers to help them learn and grow and work through problems. And servant leadership is another really big one. My role is really to help unblock my engineers, help them to do their best work, help them to learn and grow. So I'm there to help them in any way that I possibly can. And then sort of on a personal note, I really subscribe to transformational leadership. Agile itself is all about continuous improvement and evolution. So I really like to work on how I can transform my teams and get them doing, improving their performance and engagement and all those types of things, and just becoming a better team overall. One thing I would recommend is spend some time learning about your own leadership styles so that you can utilize those strengths effectively, but that you can also develop some of these others that I mentioned because they are really important in your role.
Okay, I see. Now, my next question is, how do you go from a software developer to a software development manager? And I want to break this question down to two parts. So one part is, how do you go from a software development engineer to a tech lead? What was the transition look like?
Right. Going from SDE to tech lead is a fairly natural transition as a result of your seniority as an engineer. So as you become more senior as an engineer, you're taking on larger projects. You're going to start doing things like taking a problem, building a solution, breaking it down into the work items that are needed to complete that solution, and then working to deliver it. So to become a tech lead, you still have that upfront component of defining the solution, but then you start to do things like delegating some of the tasks to other team members and things like that. And that's sort of the natural transition there. My recommendation is to look at taking on bigger projects as you become more senior in your engineering role, and also look at how you're working with your other team members, right? So looking to do mentorship, guidance, pairing with other developers to help them learn and grow, and providing them feedback on the things that they're doing. That's a great way to start transitioning into that tech lead role. And yeah, it's still a hybrid role, so it's a natural fit. You're still doing, engineering in a lot of ways, right? So
got it. Now, my next question is for someone who wants to go from a tech lead or a senior developer, go from a senior to a software developer manager role. What's the transition look like? How to go from A to B?
Right. In this case, my biggest recommendation is to learn more about management itself and the role, because management is really more of a career change than it is a career progression. Going from engineer to tech lead is still more of a progression, but management is a completely different skill set. You're now working with people. You're considerably more hands off in terms of delivery. So learning about it is probably what I would recommend first and foremost. And, there's great materials out there nowadays that you can learn from, such as I often recommend the book, The Making of a Manager by Julie Zhu, or Leading Snowflakes by Oren Ellenbogen for those who are new to the role. For more comprehensive books, I recommend Become an Effective Software Engineering Manager by James Stanier, and my personal favorite, Managing the Unmanageable by Mickey Mantle and Ron Lichty. Great way to learn about the role before you get involved, and that will just help prepare you for it as well. And then I would also recommend reaching out for mentorship. You can start with your own manager or other managers within your company that you sort of look up to. Ask them about their role and how they were able to transition into it, some of the challenges that they faced or things that you can do to prepare for that. You can also reach out through networking things like LinkedIn or Meetup and things like that to meet people. Most people would be happy to give you a bit of time to talk to you about their own experiences. And that's a great way to understand the role better before you really commit to it. Because like I've mentioned, it is more of a career change and it requires a different skill set. Once you've decided to do this, definitely communicate it. Obviously, communicate it directly to your manager about your own career goals, so that they're aware of the direction you want to go. Because there's plenty of opportunities, within your current role that can start to help giving you some experience as working towards becoming a manager. So that's the great place to start. Another thing I would recommend is work on yourself. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence are really critical to being successful in a management role. So spending time working on yourself, becoming more aware of, your own triggers, weaknesses, and blind spots are a great way to help prepare you to work better with people. Finally, just develop your leadership skills. And the nice thing about that is you can do that anywhere. It doesn't have to be in work. It can be in any kind of activities outside of work. whatever you might do in your family and things like that. And these are great opportunities to develop teamwork and leadership skills. And don't think less of these experiences just because they're not in the workplace. They're still extremely valuable. For myself, I used to organize a rec hockey team, and it taught me so many lessons about, building a team, working towards common goals, evaluating, team dynamic, as well as understanding my role on the team. I didn't have to be the best player. I didn't have to be the most vocal person in the dressing room and things like that, but I was responsible for the entire team. So, developing those leadership skills in any area of your life will really help set you up for success.
Got it. Now, my last question is, what are some aspects do you consider when hiring SE?
Sure. First of all, it depends on the role that you're hiring for. Obviously, with someone that's more intermediate or senior, you are going to put more emphasis on the skills and relevant experience just because you're often looking for a specific skill set. But what I will say is that two things that I always look for, regardless of the position that I'm hiring for, are personality or character and, the ability or willingness to learn. These two things are critical for success for an individual within a team and just for success within their career, right? Software development is a team sport. So you need to look for people who want to join to add to the team in more than just the skills that they bring, right? Skills can always be taught, but personality often can't be changed. And so you want somebody who's going to be a good fit for the team and who's going to, elevate the team overall in terms of their culture and performance and things like that. In terms of ability to learn, we all know that our industry is constantly changing. Like, you have to keep learning new technologies as things advance, and having that ability to learn and the humility to admit you don't know everything is really critical to success. So an engineer should have that growth mindset regardless of where they are in their career. Junior, intermediate, senior, it doesn't matter. People should still be willing to learn, be open-minded to learning new things, not only technically, but from others on the team and things like that. A couple other ones that I really care about when it comes to hiring is diversity. I really value diverse teams. I think that help the team itself come up with great solutions, and age, gender, ethnicity, but also background. We're lucky that there are people that often come from different backgrounds into software engineering, and they can often provide really insightful perspectives when it comes to solving problems, right? So I look for people who may have a different educational background or may have had a previous career somewhere else. I just think it adds such a great dynamic to the team. And the final one that I always really look for is communication skills. It's critical with our abstract nature of our work that people are able to communicate their ideas clearly and effectively. So written and verbal communication skills are highly useful. A couple things I do is certainly evaluating resumes is a first indicator about communication skills. So it's always important to make sure that your resume is well written and well structured, because I'll evaluate that as a means of how you communicate on paper. And then, of course, during the interview, that's where I evaluate people's verbal communication skills.
I see. I think these characteristics or aspects are very important for, I think, hiring any roles. So I definitely 100% agree on that. Now, in terms of developers, like senior developers or tech lead, is there any other aspects that you look for that are other than SD1 or SD2?
Yes. For more senior or tech lead, that's where you start to look at their leadership capabilities, how well they work with others in terms of being able to mentor others and help them grow, because you're now in a position where you want to provide back to help grow some of those more junior developers, right? How do they deal with things like conducting code reviews to ensure that they're helping the person learn and grow as part of those code reviews? How capable are they of doing things like pairing with others in order to help them walk through problems and things like that? Those are all really critical. Leadership skills become important at that level as well. So how are they putting, the needs of the team and the other individuals on the team ahead of just their own individual goals and things like that? I also look for that as well. And just, sort of well-rounded character, as I mentioned before, right? Like, is this a person who is capable of really working together as a team, regardless of their level of experience, to help everyone on the team? Those are some of the things I look for.
Nice. Awesome. Now, the last part is just if you have any final advice or any final words that that you want to clarify or that you want to provide to the audience.
I just want to say that I've mentioned this already. Moving into management is really more of a career change than it is a career progression. So it's important to understand that before you get involved in it. It can be an extremely rewarding job to hold as you see, the individuals on your team work together to deliver towards a common goal and deliver software, that's larger than an individual can deliver themselves. But, there are things that you do need to let go of. You have to be really self-aware in order to work with people and ensure you bring out the best in them. And, it's very different than just writing software. That's the thing. So I encourage anybody who is interested in getting into it to pursue it. It's a really rewarding role, but it is a lot different than a lot of people think coming from software engineering itself.
I see. Do you have any regrets for transition to engineer manager role? Do you still missing coding? Could you tell us a bit more about how you feel?
I've made peace with it. It took me a while, but I've made peace with the fact that I'm not writing, production code anymore, anything like that. So it did take a while for me to overcome that, though. Referring to that lack of control that I mentioned, not having your hands on in the code every day is a hard thing to give up. So I went through a period where I had to make that decision and come to terms with it, and I have. I'm okay with where I've decided to go and let go of the fact that I'm not going to be building software the same way I did in the past.
Got it. Awesome. So those are the questions that I have for you, Mike. And thank you very much for being on this show.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure to talk to you, and thanks very much for this. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Now, this is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching this far. Now, if you're interested to see more of this content, please consider like and subscribe this channel.